how you got into product design as a space, and how the last few years that now you've been working at some of these large companies building very scalable products, how that's been. So maybe we'll start off with that, with a little bit of background around yourself, and then we'll dive into the subject matter for the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to sound so old, but it's been almost 2.5 decades getting into digital product design. I started as a technologist. I think all Indian kids either become doctors or engineers, and I also became one. And that took me into the tech world. I was a C++ developer at that time, and then kind of dabbled a little bit into the database aspects. I was a DBA for about a year and a half, and then moved into front end. And that's pretty much where I realized that we do all this, but who makes the decision what to put in there? Like, um, who says that there has to be a drop down? Who says that it has to be a radio button or a checkbox or whatever, right? And that's what took me to HCI, which is human computer interaction. And I think I kind of fell in love with it. They say that you fall in love, you don't rise in love. So I think I'm still fallen. So that's what took me into the world of HCI, and my career started. One good thing is, as a technologist, you understand how software, is built, and designing for software products became much easier for me to understand because I know how the wirings are happening behind the scenes. So that's pretty much how my entry was into the world of design, and then it was called as design thinking, research. I mean, UXR, UX, UI. In my opinion, there are about 9 fields that we touch upon as a digital product designer. We can go into the details of it as we discuss, but that's how my journey started. Um, some notable scalable products that I am proud of doing is I don't consider it a success. I don't give myself too much credit for every project that I do, but the one that we did in HP, where we did not just change the printer, but we changed the printing. That's changed the whole thing, right? It was a 48 button clunky interface, which kind of became a sleek touchscreen. This is what in 2007, where iPhone was getting released, and imagine to create a physical product, you cannot create in 2007 and launch in 2007. It should have started much earlier. So the struggles of going through getting approvals, changing the world of all the printers, that wasn't easy. But after we did it, Canon did it, Epson did it, Ricoh did it, Brother did it, just everybody. And when somebody copies you, I think that's the best. Imitation is the best form of flattery. So that's how the printing world changed. And I never looked back after that. And then I had an opportunity to work in Amazon. If you're spending too much money in Amazon, partly I'm responsible for it. We used quite a bit of behavioral science to kind of get you into it. If at all you're using a keyboard, that is definitely having a DNA of my team in it. Like this, we can go on and on, almost 20 plus domains. And recently, I had an opportunity to work with next billion users, even Salesforce for that matter today. If you look at it from a B2B perspective, every customer touch point is actually run by the CRM behind it. Just that we don't know that, hey, there is a Salesforce behind it, right? So yeah, it's been an interesting journey on building these products. And is that real world enough? I think so. You are spending your money day in and day out and you're hooked on it. So it's real world.
Got it. Thanks a lot for that intro, right? And I think just the products that you spoke about, some of them, including whether it's the Salesforce CRM, how the printers, operated when HP made the change. I think that's a great segue to the first segment, right? So when we were planning this session, we were thinking of, how do we integrate a conversation that has both product and ops, right? And the way that we felt it made a lot of sense is when you build these scalable products that have to be used by hundreds of people. Also, hundreds of thousands of people. Let me be more accurate, right? And oftentimes when products have to be used by sales teams, by field teams, by say some of the more junior people in the organization, then that's something that, while it needs to have all its functionality and capabilities, it also needs to fundamentally, it needs to be easy to adopt, it needs to be usable, and all of those things, right? So then when we get into this, right, maybe our first question, trying to understand from you, when you talk about designing products that are used by, not just operations teams, but used in scale, let's put it that, what does usability mean, right? Like you can have something that is usable, which is just good enough, but then that's not going to go viral, not going to get adoption, not going to have all your competitors copying you within a couple of years because this was just excellent, right? So I'd love to hear from you. How do you think about usability? How should product managers think about making products usable?
So there is a saying everything is designed, just that some things are designed really well. What that means is design is inevitable. It's either accidental or incidental. The question that you're asking is, how do we do incidental design in such a way that we really, add more meaning and purpose? That's pretty much where you are touching upon, whether it is for operations team or sales team or a tech team. First thing first is we are all human beings first, right? And as a result of it, for the last 1,000 years, from what I know, we haven't changed as a human species. And I don't think we are going to change for another 1,000 years. By then, you and I will be dead, so we don't have to worry about it. But the point is, if we understand the human side of things, the man, human, then making a machine for this man becomes much easier. In one sense, this equation hasn't, the 50% of that equation hasn't changed, which kind of leaves me, it's like the 50% of the question paper is kind of released and you can use it for next 1,000 years. And now you just need to adjust the machines accordingly. So that's how I look at it. So whether you're doing it for say an ops team or a B2C or a B2B or a B2G or a B2B2C, whatever, right? It's all for human beings is what I would kind of start with. That's my starting point. And if you understand who is really using your product, in the technical terms, we call it as job performers, who are performing the jobs using these products, then the minute we understand that, we will be able to design for them. So that's been the secret sauce in many ways. So if you understand who is using it, how are they using it, why are they using it, the why, what, how, when, all of these things will give you an idea of how to think about designing the product for this person. It is usually for a need or a want or a gap that the user will be able to talk about. But there is one thing the user cannot talk about is the opportunity. For example, none of us went and said to Paytm saying, you should have a scanner-like thing and I want to send money like a text. We never said that. That's figuring out the opportunity. So like a Maslow's hierarchy, I have a hierarchy for the experience as well. I call it as a hierarchy of experience just to make sense for myself and for my students. I created it. The bottommost layer is creating a functional product. It works. The product works. And then it becomes reliable. And then it becomes durable. And then it becomes convenient, where you are able to save time, energy, all of that good stuff. And then it becomes, pleasurable, delightful, and then meaningful, right? So it is on the scale of significance, it keeps increases. So when you're talking about usability, you're really touching on the lower part of this. We are far away from usability, at least in the last decade and a half. We have done excellent work in usability engineering that today, like how I said, we changed printing. In one sense, Apple and Android changed the mobile world because of their human interface guidelines. We were able to pretty much create, today, not all apps suck. Do you agree with me? 90% of them are decent enough because the basis is taken care of. In many, many ways, the usability is taken care of. That's a hygiene factor right now. So that's how I look at it. And attaining usability is like having a check mark saying that, okay, we have delivered a decent product. I think we need to go towards meaning and purpose. There are some products which are extremely meaningful. For example, these are products that you cannot live without. You want, it is an integral part of it. And if I removed it from your life feels a little void, meaningless. Definitely, I can say Amazon is one of them. Today, I don't know how many of us really go into a supermarket and buy all the things. I mean, just check in Amazon. I don't know, somewhere even Instamart is becoming that way in many, many ways. At least if you ask my mother, she will say so. She will turn on the stove and say, oh, I need tomatoes. And then she orders. I mean, that's how we add meaning and significance to people's lives. So when the product is not just usable and it is more meaningful, I think we are definitely moving in that rung. We are, I would say in 2025, we are in this delightful, pleasurable phase, and we need to go above. Usability is 2010 tax.
And Karthi, when you keep that context, right, that we moved much further ahead from usability, that was like a very basic aspect. Products have now become delightful, right? Now, when you're trying to build something at scale and you have a lot of frontline operators, a lot of folks who need to use the product, could you help us understand what that process or a little bit goes like, right? Like, how do you sort of collect feedback? How do you ensure that it shapes the product decisions very directly? Any examples from your career where doing or not doing this has led to good or difficult outcomes in the context of actually building products? Would be fantastic to get some perspective there.
If you're a good designer, you should ideally be a good experimenter, because if you ask a human being, is this what you want? They are usually going to give you signals. They are not going to be able to give definitive answers at all. So if at all you wanted to know if you have built something great, just look at their adoption. I think adoption is a great metric to see if your product is working or not. The problem solution fit is what I'm talking about. Did I solve your problem? Did I, take care of your hunger? When I release a Swiggy, are you, getting through it? How many people are adopting it? How many times and how many million orders are coming? This is a great way, because it's data. Numbers don't lie, and they tell you exactly where you are. So when you are a designer, you need to be, kind of watching for these numbers. How many of them are, for example, a lot of us adopted a few things because they gave us, say, some coins or some, cashback and stuff like that. But once you pull the plug of cashback, are you still using it? And that's a great way to test the retention as well. So if you are like hooked, like this was the flywheel that was needed to hook you into the product, but you're still using it. Google Pay did an amazing job at that, right? And you're kind of hooked. But tomorrow, if Cred gives you a 200 rupee cashback, you are greedy customer, you will move there. And that's how we are. And it is important for you to understand how much are we retaining the customers as well. So that's the second metric that I look for. And whenever you're looking at scale, these numbers kind of tell you what is the size of the market that you have kind of, operating in. In product management terms, we look at the TAM, SAM, SOM. What is your total addressable market? What is your total serviceable market? Or how much are you actually servicing now? These things kind of numbers tell you where you stand. That is why designers need to work very, very closely with product folks so that you kind of get an understanding of these numbers. Now, once you have this idea, you know where things are failing. Oh, the users are coming till a 7-day trial, but after that, they are not going forward. So you kind of try and understand, like, what made you stay for 7 days? Or what made you kind of drop off? What made you remove that app immediately after installing? These are all some amazing things that you can dig deeper and ask a customer in an interview, because they will be able to tell you. And if you notice, you're not talking to millions of customers. You're talking to 10, 12, and then you are designing it for millions. Why? Because 99.9% of human beings are similar, right? And if you are designing for a person, this is why I'm a very big fan of designing for a person rather than a persona. And I don't ask questions like, would you be interested in trying it out? I have never done MVPs where I go and ask this question. I put out the product, I see how many of them are buying it, and I see in the pilot how many of them are adopting it, and how many of them are doing it in the second tranche, third tranche. Then you know if you're really getting product market fit. Put the customer in a fix and ask them to pay money for it. Are they willing to exchange value with you? Are they ready to part with their currency for the value that you are giving? If not, you will be fooled, because as human beings, we don't want to be direct. We don't want to hurt the other human being. So what we will say is, would you want this product? Of course. If you just add this feature, I will buy it. And you add this feature and go back to them, they will tell you, I want this feature. And then you add that feature and go back to them, they will say, so don't waste your time. Create a product for this person on the people like this person, and see if it is sticky. It has to start niche, and then only it can go to a repeatable, scalable point. If you start repeatable, scalable, you will fail because you will not know who is the job performer for whom you are actually making the product. Am I making sense? No? Are you able to? And I have done, if a designer comes and says, oh, whatever we did worked, then that's an absolute lie, because whatever we do doesn't work. And to me, I am so proudly sharing my failures, because that's how you learn. That's how you learn what is not working. There are two types of designers who are, kind of hooked on to green, and there are designers who are hooked on to amber and red. I am the second kind. I'm hooked on to amber and red, continuously learning what is not working. And I can give you thousands of examples for things that did not work. For example, Amazon, we did something called as Amazon Custom. The things that you're printing on your t-shirts, on your mugs. So you can actually customize it. For example, what is happening in the black box, you can actually do it on an Amazon. Say a leather, and you are printing Rohit, and you're sending it as a personalized gift. As an idea, it's amazing. As a business, we could customize millions, in a day, because there are templates and you just put different names and we are done, right? But it did not work with our customers, because it was so difficult for our customers to figure out how to customize it. They did not understand the difference between customization and personalization. After spending almost $1 million, we shut it down. We said, this is not working, and let us not get into this sunk cost fallacy. Let others do it. There are 1,000 custom sites that can do this for you. This is not Amazon's thing. Let's go and do something else. Similarly, I remember distinctly, we created a glasses, spectacles, Amazon spectacles, right? Today, Lenskart is doing it. But in 2014, 2015, we were trying to see if Amazon can take the prescription and create the lens and kind of ship it to you. We realized that customers, they wanted to check how they look, their face cut, and they wanted somebody to, and they took quite a bit of time to do this, and this needed a lot more personal touch. This is not something, oh, we are able to sell clothing, jeans, so we should be able to sell spectacles. No, we are wrong. So we spent quite a bit of time to create a full-fledged AR, VR model, so that if I just scan your face and if I just choose a spectacle, you can kind of, move your head and you will be able to see like this, you'll be able to see your face on it. Fabulous. I thought it will definitely work because you are, but how many times you buy specs in your life?
Hmm.
Really? So I mean, I just picked one example. Like this, I can go into Novartis, I can go into Dr. Reddy's, I can go into $1 billion mistakes as well.
Got it. Understood. And Karthi, so you said something very interesting, which was that, look, you will always get things wrong up to a certain point of time. You will require to go through that loop to get the feedback from the users, to make corrections. Things will not work out initially at times as you had planned, right? Maybe one thought. So when you're trying to build these products for a very, very large number of people, right? One aspect is, of course, you, as you said, you build it, you put it out there, you test it, you get the feedback. Could you tell us a little bit about what thought process goes behind the construction or the design of the product overall, such that things such as usability, things such as adoption, things such as the end user who you want to ultimately work with it, being able to show all those metrics on activation, retention, etc. One is, of course, the iterative process of improving the product with feedback. But
Right.
I'm certain that when you are launching your MVP or you're building your first product, there is obviously some degree of confidence that is going into the fact that this will work, right? Basis
Totally.
research, basis your design thinking, the different processes that you go through. It'd be fantastic to get a little bit of that view, right? In terms of how do you set yourself up for success when designing a product, even though success is not absolute and is iterative, as you've already made very clear. But to the extent possible, we'd love to understand, how can you get as close as possible, right, to getting things right the first time?
If I could draw, it would be, but I want you to imagine as I am speaking, as a visual thinker. It's always easier to imagine visuals because it kind of makes your life easier. So imagine a business like a circle, and the product is existing within the business. And there are a bunch of people who are working on that product, building that product, sculpting that product, right? So this is one circle. Your customer lives outside of the circle. Your customer doesn't live inside the business. In fact, around your customers, there are multiple businesses trying to lure and woo this customer to say, come buy from Zomato. And there is one Swiggy saying, come buy from. Now, Big Basket is saying, I will deliver food in like 10 minutes. Uber Eats, Ola Eats, whatnot. So the user is a chooser. The user gets to choose whom I want to part my value with, which is your currency. Now, if you look at this side, this is where the product builders live. They live inside the business. So if at all you're making a product, you cannot make it in isolation. It has to set into the viability of the business. If it is not making business sense, don't make that product. Whom are you going to sell it to? There are some amazing, product ideas I have, but I might even have a small number of customers, but it doesn't have any business sense. For example, I did this as a part of my MBA thesis. I felt all of us should eat. I'm a South Indian. Idli dosa is my staple. So I always wanted, my mom is a master chef in that sense. And I wanted organic batters that we make at home to be delivered to each one of them so that you eat your idli and dosa rightly fermented, rightly salted, without boric acid in it. If you buy from your, supermarkets, it has been lying there in that fridge. And now you can keep it in your fridge for another 15 days. If you know a little bit about biology and microbes, you know that nothing stays like it. If it is a fresh food. Yeah. But how am I going to deliver freshly, prepared batter every single day? Amazing idea. I had 423 customers for my MVPs, and some of my customers were like cine stars, and that's the kind of, because people who really cared about their health really, and they were willing to pay. When you are able to get a batter for like 50 rupees, they paid me 145 rupees. So on the outlet, you might just say that, oh, that's a fantastic idea. Look at it. You have 400 customers. Awesome, right? But it didn't make business sense. The amount of petrol that I will spend in just delivering this, the amount of time that I'm going to spend in which I'm preparing the batter, it's just not scalable. Yeah. And if I want to keep up the quality, it is not scalable. But if I add a little bit of boric acid, it is scalable.
But
Are
then
you willing?
it's the value proposition, and you go back
are you willing to do that? And that's the question. So my first advice to anybody who's thinking about product is first figure out the viability and then build the product for that viability. Because desirability, we always have desires, needs and wants and gaps and opportunities are immense. And in any field, you have number of, you go ask a human being, do you want this? They will say yes. Do you want more? Yes. Do you want more of this? Of course, yes. So the greed has no, ceiling. That being said, your desirability needs to be understood. You need to figure out the viability and you need to understand the feasible part of it as well. For you to make it scalable and repeatable, do you have the equipment? Do you have the code? Do you have the grinders? Can you make it? And that's a question. And something which fits into these three circles is what you will be able to deliver to your customer. That is what becomes scalable and repeatable. A lot of my students come and talk about human-centric design to humanity-centric design. I want to solve global warming. Okay, buddy, who's going to buy it? I mean, oh, polar bears are dying. Okay, go save it. But who cares about it? Who's going to fund your project? They're like, hey, Karthi, you should be the one who is advising us, encouraging us to do it. I'm like, because I'm in this position to encourage you and advise you, I'm telling you, this will fail. So the first step is to kind of understand, is this viable? Is this business viable? To do that, we understand the human nature deeply. A lot of designers come from this side of the world, which is graphic design. Oh, I made posters in my college fest. I am creative. I will be able to make logos awesome. Look at the dazzling style that I bring. All of fantastic. But that is this side, right? But I want you to come from this side of the world, which is what is human nature? How do human beings process information? What are your behaviors? What is automated? Like you make it as a habit. Using the product becomes a habit. What are the aspects that you are looking into? So this understanding is the base of everything that you get started with. And that is why you need a cognitive scientist who can kind of make decisions for that. And then you go into need finding and insighting. This is all human beings, but you need to find the right human beings who want your product, right? For that, you will create ideation. I mean, you create ideas, you conceptualize it, and then you go and test the value proposition. That is where your strategy is born. And then you go ahead and say, what are the things I want to cover structurally? Am I going to do everything under the logistics world, everything under the food world? Or am I going to start only with a 5-kilometer radius? Decision. And then you add some behaviors. Oh, when I click this, this happens, and I can see if the rider is coming to me, how far the restaurant has packed the food, this is getting delayed, whatever. And then all of this shows up in your interface. And this is how much needs to happen for you to really understand if your product is going to work. And I would say spend enormous amount of time in the first phase, because the more you fail there, the more you will succeed later. It is almost like this. Now that we are taking food as an example, instead of asking the customer anything, you will go and say, try this and tell me. And they are like, I don't want it. I'm like, Arey, this is chicken biryani. Why are you saying no? And okay, let me try something else. And then you give the best of the best mutton biryani. They say no. Damn, you're talking to a vegetarian. You could have just asked that question, isn't it? Right? So if you had, this is exactly what happens in the software world. Making a chicken biryani takes a lot of money, effort, time, resources. Making a mutton biryani takes all of it, and you're willing to lose it. because you go through this rocking, chair syndrome where you're just moving, moving, moving. You're not actually making progress. The movement is there, busyness is there. And I see so many founders making this mistake of just being on that rocking chair because it's so uncomfortable to fail. Instead, I would say, just go ask that person, what would you prefer? What kind of food? Indian, continental, Italian. What the hell do you want? What do you like? What is your palate like? So trust me, customers do not know everything. At the max, they will be able to articulate something for which they have needs and gaps. They cannot articulate something that they don't know. You and I did not go and tell, hey, I need a UPI. You and I did not go and tell Apple that whenever there is no skin contact and I just remove it, stop the music. We never said it. This needs a lot of thinking. So it is layers of understanding the human nature, understanding the jobs to be done, understanding the different job performers, understanding their needs and the wants, and then you sitting and figuring out what are the opportunities because you understood the human nature deep. That is where I think we create breakthrough products. And you will be creating meaning and pleasure. And there are some of these amazing ideas, they're just not viable. And some of these fantastic imaginations, just not feasible. We don't have technology yet to do that. Right? Because the human imagination, there's no ceiling to it. I will be able to imagine something in the next 30 minutes, but it will take you 30 years to actually bring this to life. So it's important for you to work within those boxes as well. Is that making sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, it gives a good segue into maybe one of my next questions, which was, once you say you do this process, right? You built a product, you've gotten the adoption, it's working very clearly, right? As these products grow in scale, as they grow in complexity, more and more people start using them. People start adding customizations. It's almost like the product takes on a life of its own, right?
Yes.
And we see products like this all the time, right? Whether it's, I don't know, Microsoft Office on our laptops, it's Salesforce for the sales teams, SAPs in factories and manufacturing setups, or a billion others, right? That you could possibly think of. So two-part question here. One, as this goes on over time, as the product matures, how do you ensure that, one, that it continues to sort of stay relevant, right? That the customer for who the product was initially built and who it was handed over to is now not like lost somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like relevant. And the viability of the product is ongoing, well beyond where it just started. That's one question that I have. The second question is, people have, for example, been trying to displace something like SAP or displace something like Salesforce for years, right? And now in the AI era, people are trying to do it again, saying that we will build new systems of record, we will figure out a way to displace SAP or Salesforce. Yet it's extremely difficult, will probably not happen in the grand scheme of things, right? Or even if it does, it won't be to the extent that people maybe think. So how do you think about both of these things, right? One, products continuing to remain relevant, usable, functional over a period of time, evolving over a period of time. And second, products continuing to be defensible in the wake of incoming competition. And I think Rishika has put a comment in the chat saying that Tally is a great example of a product.
I will answer the second question first, and then we'll get into the first one a little. So we are, as human beings, if you really look deeply into human nature, we are not morally loyal. We are not, I will give my life for this. There's nothing like that in our entire system. If something works, we use it. If something works better, we shift. So the cost of switching, whenever the cost of switching is negligible for me, I don't care. Okay, as long as it doesn't pain my pocket, I will be able to switch. And we were able to switch from BlackBerry to iPhone in a jiffy, didn't we? Why? Because it was a phone. Here is a phone. I am okay to pay more, but I am able to get more. So it is a value proposition. We are deal makers. as a species, we are deal makers. And I get into a lot of trouble when I talk about this because they're like, oh, we have love, we have loyalty, we have morality, we have ethics, and we have. Sorry, folks, you don't. Yeah, these are all structures that we have put in the society so that we will be coexisting and collaborating together without killing each other. But that's about it. So whenever there is a good deal, we jump. And this inflection points comes in when the value that I get from the deal is far higher from the value that I hold in hand. As much as Salesforce looks unbeatable today, I know I work there, and day and night I create products to keep it relevant. But if there is one product which comes and says to all our salespeople in the world, you don't have to enter anything into the CRM, it will be automatically taken care of. Just give me access to all your phone calls, all your records, all your customer conversations, and suddenly people will be willing to think about it. Why? Because the pain of keeping up the data is being removed by another product. So as deal makers, we look for the cost of switching. Whenever the cost of switching is negligible, we just move. We are not able to displace an ERP or a CRM or a productivity suite like Microsoft only because we have invested way too much. Our entire org is using it. We are like deeply involved and invested in those products, right? And this is true for any innovation, right? So that is just a human nature way of looking at it. The first question that you asked is like, how do you keep it relevant, right? How do you keep it? Oh, it started once upon a time with problem solution fit, and then we moved into product market fit, and then you moved into business model fit, and now you are compounding more features, more features, more features, more ways of doing it. And that is what people like me do. Our job is to keep our products fresh and relevant, because the human being, a lot of people say, oh, we set the usability, we set the experience standards. Sorry, you don't. The industry sets the experience standards. If a human being is used to better experience, it is very hard for this human being to come back to a crappier experience. How many of you go and stand in line on a ticket counter today to actually get tickets? I bet none. If it is available in Book My Show, you will book it, or you will wait for it to release in Netflix or Prime. Because better experiences is what hooks you. Our job is to eat our own dog food and just eat our own kids and just keep creating newer and newer experiences. That's what is called as innovation, right? So in that sense, it's a hard job, because after you compound, you build one monolith. And now you can't do anything like mind-blowingly different. I can't change the entire data model. I can't change the architecture. I remember it distinctly when I was with HP. This was my project in 2010. I created a printer for 2020. And it looked like this. It was almost a thin, something like this. And I had a groove here. And I said, either you can put a phone or your iPad, and you can say what you want to print. You can even type what you want to print in that iPad, and you just press a button and it just comes out. This is it. This is your printer. You can carry it. Our engineering head looked at it and said, not in a million years. I'm like, why? Because the architecture that we have, it needs space, Karthi. It is a box. I will never be able to make it so thin. Yeah, it stays as a fantastic patent or as a fantastic model that we created, but that's the issue. when we create monoliths, it's very hard for you to scratch the code. And something Microsoft did beautifully is they rewrote their products again. Whole new code base. Having guts to say, let us not go and fix the threads which are tangled up together. Let us create a new thread. That needs leadership courage. And I truly applaud Microsoft when they took that decision. We will rewrite the whole thing. It's okay. It is worthier to go ahead and rewrite the code base rather than fixing the old legacy code. So that's how much courage you need to go ahead and change something that you have done. And our job, at least in the leadership team, we keep asking, like, how can we kill ourselves? If we don't kill us, somebody else will.
It's a very, very interesting perspective. And one of the questions that came to my mind as you were saying this, right? Like, the industry sets the standards. You have to constantly be aware of what is changing, right? And you have to evolve with it, right? So maybe a couple of questions here. One, how do you do this, right? Like, what is this process of just knowing what new customer desires, expectations, hobbies, and habits are coming up? And therefore, how do you modify the product accordingly, right? And to not say do it too early, such that you think a wave was coming and then you made the changes and didn't take off and now you're stuck with the dead product. Or by the time you realized the market's already moved and now you're playing catch up and you're losing market share, right? So there's a balance between knowing what to dive into and what not. But a big part of that is just the awareness of when has a new theme or a new way of working or a new concept reached a certain critical mass such that you think if we don't adopt it, it'll make us uncompetitive. Talk a little bit about that process of how you're of when you think ready for a certain change to be accepted into the product or modified into the product.
I can take the current example itself, CRM, right? If you look at Salesforce's history, there is this brilliant word called as M&A, mergers and acquisition. So whenever something is super successful and has gotten so much of traction in the market, it is far easier for us to go ahead and acquire them and bring them as a part. And this is one way of keeping our relevance because you get the right products into the other one is to just go ahead and keep an eye on all the new CRM products that are getting interesting reviews. Listen to what the customers are saying. And it's a fascinating way of knowing, despite having a Salesforce and paying, whatever X dollars that you pay for it, and then you're paying for another product to do one thing which Salesforce doesn't do. This is an interesting data point. And that is an amazing way to go ahead and understand what the customer needs are. Because if somebody is willing to pay money and go and get it as a part of their suite, something, for example, I see a lot of us pay for ChatGPT or a Claude or a Perplexity, sometimes all three. I'm like, but you are given, a Copilot or a Gemini, but why do you go and buy more by paying some $240 from your pocket? Why? Because it is adding some value. So the basics don't change. It is always the value exchange. You look for that value proposition. And now you ask, how can I bring this value into our product? Either through an M&A or through adding the features. And I look for these bold interviews where they say, we are going to kill XYZ. And look for what gives them that confidence. Because they tell you why customers don't like, say, any CRM software, a HubSpot or a Salesforce or a ServiceNow. They kind of come and tell you, this is what we are killing. Isn't that awesome? Somebody else did that job for you. Just go to do it. And that's another way to look at what is happening in the market, and we do the trend analysis and keep an eye on it constantly. This is what our Intel teams do, isn't it? The competitive intelligence is something that you keep gathering. And then you ask, is this worth it? Because when you have done it for like 25 years, you can ask that question, is it worth it? Is it really that problem? And then you check with your customers, why are you not buying that product? And they might say, oh, well, that's not my need right now.
I see. Understood. And then would you thus say that, as a senior product leader at one of the largest product companies in the world, even today, you might be spending time, going to product hunt and checking out what is like.
Oh, totally.
And
totally.
at what people are saying on Reddit about, some of these, because I'm pretty sure, like, I haven't seen this myself, but I wouldn't be surprised if all of your large ERP systems, CRM systems, they all had like subreddits where people are discussing a variety of things.
Totally.
From customizations to hacks to gripes to whatever, right? I think I've seen a lot of this on, say, consumer tech softwares much more commonly, and not as much for, say, B2B softwares, but I wouldn't be surprised. So very interesting to note that that's where you're.
I have a full-fledged Figma which kind of keeps tab of all of these things. For example, anything that the Day.ai CEO talks about, because he boldly says that I'm going to kill CRM, right? And it is and he gives a lot of reasons, and he was the chief architect in HubSpot. So it's worth listening to a man like that. So I do have, and if you look at the morning CRM, the customer experience is just mind-blowingly awesome, easy. While we might not be able to do all of that in Salesforce, somewhere it will expose you to all of this. So there are about 1,000 CRMs, and I have the landscape of all the CRMs. So there is one thing called as a competitive insights, the other thing called as heroic insights. So I have 2 pages in my Figma which says, this is the hero. If there is a system of intelligence, this is how it should work. And it need not be just from CRM. It can come from healthcare. It can come from multiple things. It can come from finance. And you look at your competition, you look at the heroes, and then you make the decision. Because at the end of the day, you need to go and tell your executive team and influence them and say that, I think we need to pay attention to this. Either you buy them, or you fund them to make it happen internally, or we'll create a skunk work teams or something like that. There is this beautiful Tamil saying, it's a proverb which says, I don't know how many of you know Tamil here, but let me do English subtitles for it. Anjuvathu anjame pedamai means for the things that you're not, for the things that you should be scared, if you're not scared, you're an idiot. Right? You need to be worried, like tomorrow morning, things may change. Yeah, there could be one breakthrough that can wipe you out. Yeah, you cannot sit on your laurels all the time. And I live like that. Whichever brand I work for, whichever product I work for, I always look for reds and ambers because that's the place where somebody will shoot you.
Yep. And just touching on what you said last, right, about a radical change, something that's coming, that's going to make things very, very different. I think it's a great segue into the last part of the conversation, which is to get a little bit of your perspective on what role AI is playing, right, in product design, product engineering, and your work and the work of designers like yourselves, right? Maybe before I get into any specific questions on, how you might be using AI or all of those things, maybe just a high-level view from you on, has anything materially changed before and ChatGPT when it comes to, not the world, I mean, the world has changed substantially, but
my life,
product design and product building, could you give us a sense of what that looks like?
Definitely. I would like to think of it as a part of the Industrial Revolution. First time, if you look at the man-machine equation, we didn't create machines. So we used other men as machines. I mean, when I say it like that, it sounds very scientific. Basically, slavery. That's what we did, right? And we used other, bunch of machines to kind of increase our efficiency and effectiveness. And then we started creating tools, some levers according to Archimedes' principle. And then we moved the earth in many, many ways. And then we started creating factories. And then our efficiency and effectiveness kind of skyrocketed. And so if you look at it, the amount of work the man did was like so big and the machine did was so small. This was like 100,000 years ago. And then slowly, if you look at this equation, the amount of work the man does is getting it's smaller, and the amount of work the machine does is expanding. There has come a point where the man need not do anything. First, we let go of our muscle. Now we are letting go of our cognitive ability. Yeah. So the body and the mind is being replaced in many, many ways. Intelligence is what actually made us the super species. Adaptability, as we call it. Ability to make tools, ability to have conversations, and having the language as a medium to have that conversation. These are the three things which made us who we are. We are not the fastest. We are not the strongest. We don't even reproduce as good as other animals, but still we rule the world. This is what made us. Now, we are creating a tool which can create tools, which can create language, which can collaborate within itself. What are we doing? Where are we heading to? I'm very excited that this phase, I am seeing a superhuman productivity in how I think, how the 6-pager, which takes me probably 2 weeks to write, is done in like 60 minutes. Amazing. First draft is ready in 60 minutes. In 6 hours, that is because I need to discuss with human beings. It takes 6 hours. Otherwise, it would be done in less time, right? So in that sense, definitely, there is a productivity skyrocketing for sure. I don't know what we would be from a first principle point of view, because our adaptability will be threatened. I hope we will still remain the master, and every other tool remains as a slave. The minute this equation changes, it's going to be different. I don't want to create a doomsday here, but that's the first principle.
Understood. And we've all obviously been hearing about vibe coding as a thing, right? Lovable, Cursor, Windsurf getting acquired by one of the large LLM players for billions of dollars, literally months after launching. And it seems to not just be like a passing fancy, but it really, really seems like people are getting into it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 2 questions here. One is, how do you sort of look at this whole vibe coding piece? Do you think that serious product development innovation can actually come out of this? Where people can start building? Because I think the most far out thought that I have heard is that, look, why do you even need to buy software? You can just now make your own, right? And you can pay to host it and do all of those things, and it's very, very cheap. So this is like one huge revolution of like product-led growth, where you are yourselves building products that you need, customizing them, and then you are using them. Right? So one, I wanted to get your take a little bit more on how you see this whole vibe revolution as a product designer yourself. And second is more tangibly, when it comes to, say, the way enterprises are working, the companies are working, any thoughts on how, y'all are leveraging AI to make your life, your job more simpler, more effective, and faster?
I never believed in designers, product managers, engineers, this kind of segregation. I always called ourselves as value creators. Basically, we are value operators, right? We create value, we deliver value, we communicate value, we capture value. That's what we do really, really well. Just that I do the desirability part, or product manager does the viability part, and the engineer does the feasibility part. But at the end of the day, we are all coming together. Now, what AI is doing is it's making it a level playing field, to a point where I can code a piece, my engineer can kind of create a design without really, deeply investing into learning Figma. I don't have to deeply invest in learning say an API orchestration, stuff like that. I can understand what is a composable architecture. Now it is easier, right? But as long as I have these basics, vibe coding will work. My worry is I started Noco Loco in 2018. No code, low code. In fact, I talked about node design. This was one of my viral talks in the Google Developer Conference. In front of 1,500 developers, I said, your job is gone, and slowly my job will be gone. And this was said in 2018, right? And I'm not too surprised that it is coming true today. So in the no-code revolution, what I saw was anybody who had basics were able to up their productivity a little bit. You might go ahead and vibe code today saying, hey, create a blog page for me, blah, blah, blah. Create a software for me. But if you don't know how to put these Lego blocks together, you can't really use it. A simple thing, I was trying to create an AI product design, a 100-day challenge or something like that, because I got too many queries on this. And I just wanted it to be done into a website. And I paid $25 to Replit and said, okay, code this for me. Yeah, Replit was beautiful. It said, I'm thinking, I'm doing this, I'm connecting this. But you know what? It didn't solve the problem. Because Notion's API was not, was not friendly enough. And I didn't know how to. Then it said, oh, transfer all of this into Superbase. Go ahead and connect it using Pipedream. Or go ahead and use Zapier. I'm like, why? I have Notion. If I just click, it is published. Just to create a web interface, why are you wasting 6 hours of my time? So while it sounds very sexy to go ahead and do vibe coding, if you don't know how the engineering building blocks work, you might not, it'll become like another Wikipedia. You will know a lot of stuff. You might just, but I don't know if you will solve real problems. I haven't seen anything that is mind-blowingly changing by a designer who doesn't know enough about the engineering part. Maybe an engineer is able to use vibe code because it is able to rocket their productivity. Similarly, as a designer, I will be able to use Stitch by Google because it is able to create, in Figma, and I know how to operate with Figma. If you don't know, if you have never cooked, and if you asked an AI to cook it for you, you should at least know what is the recipe, what is the ingredients. You should at least be able to taste and say, okay, this is good. This is how a French toast is supposed to be. This is not how it is supposed to be. So garbage in is garbage out is my take. If you don't know the basics, then in the enterprise side, are we using AI? Definitely. Because 30-40% of our code is actually written by AI now. Right. So, and I'm hearing it from all my other enterprise friends as well, that what used to take them 1 week is getting done in half a day. And that's amazing. But you still need an engineer to kind of say if it is done right. So what used to take me 30 minutes to write is done in 5 minutes, but it still needs me to say, okay, is it making sense? So to me, AI is an amplifier. If you're good, it will make you great. If you're bad, it will not make you good. That's my take.
And could you give us a few examples, not necessarily from Salesforce, of course, but just in general from the ecosystem, how you can actually use AI for product design, for product development, right? It'd be just helpful to get some perspective. Of course, I mean, some of the things from what you already said comes to mind that, look, you can use some of these tools to say, build mockups, build MVPs very fast, to iterate. But in a little bit more detail, if you could just walk us through versus the workflows that used to exist pre-ChatGPT when it came to designing a product, versus the workflow that exists today post-ChatGPT when it comes to creating a product. Like, what has changed? What tools do people use? Where are the areas where in product design you've seen the greatest impact? And I think we'll end on that note.
Yeah, I mean, I distinctly remember I've been going through a little bit of health crisis in the last 12 weeks. And I think when I was in the hospital, my head of engineering called and said, Karthi, I have an idea. And imagine if we are able to do this for our account executives. Isn't that awesome? Can your team kind of help me with some mocks? Because I really want to explore. It's still a thought in my head. I'm stuck in I'm sitting in a hospital waiting on a queue for the doctor to come. And I'm like, okay, I will get back to you, I told her. And then I just opened my Claude and I said, okay, here is what I want to do. Here is my idea. And I translated that into a PRD. And I translated that PRD into a design by actually telling Claude like what to do. And it was able to create a full-fledged web page, a mobile adjusted for that resolution. And it was able to create even a prototype using all of this. All of this while I was waiting in queue for the doctor to come. And then I sent by afternoon and I said, I didn't have access. I'm actually on sick leave today and I didn't have access to my computer, but is this what you're talking about? She's like, oh, this is brilliant. And then we both were vibing on it and said, okay, let's go ahead. And after the jam, a few things got removed, a few things got added. And this went through 17 iterations in less than 5 hours. That night, we were able to hash it all together. Not the beautiful presentation, but we hashed it all together. And we were able to show it to our executive leadership team and say, we're thinking in this direction. Should we invest more capacity in this? I mean, a long story short, that idea got shot because architecturally that was a nightmare. We cannot do it right now. But a ability to make a decision in 5 hours with 17 iterations, unheard of. That too on a sick leave, without touching even your junior designer. And that, more than anything, that story left me with like, oh shit. It's not just engineers are screwed. It's designers, product managers, engineers, all of us, right? It was an amazing, experience to go through where you are able to go from idea to execution in a very short time. How deeply you know about the domain, that deeply you can talk to Claude, prompt it, and you will be able to create something really, really awesome. Then I asked one of my team members to go ahead and do a similar thing. The output that they got was completely different because their understanding of that problem statement was not as deep as I had. So in that sense, I think we do need product people and designers who understand the depth of what is going on, but execution is accelerated.
Got it.
That's my take.
No, that's it's actually quite scary in some ways when you hear it like that. But it was great to actually get a real world example from someone who's using it, right, functionally, for enterprise use cases, like you just said. On that note, would just love to ask you, as we wind up with the session, any advice, any feedback that you would have to offer to, product builders, product managers, designers, who are part of the community, who are on the call, who would be watching video in some time.
Yeah.
So we'd just love to get any parting thoughts, right? Any nuggets of wisdom that you've taken away from your time as an industry leader in this space. What should people be thinking about? What are the skills, capabilities they should be focusing on? Leave it to you to set that context.
I have a lot to say. I do write about it actively. I do have a responsibility to not be impulsive, but to actually be thoughtful about what I say. So I really, really take time to think and write whatever I write. But one thing that is a very big part of what we are going through right now is the critical thinking skills. the depth of thinking is something that I would love for all of us to preserve, because somewhere it's becoming an echo chamber where if you ask ChatGPT a certain way, it will say, yes, you are right. And to some extent, it is confirmation bias confirmed again, confirmed again, confirmed again, confirmed again. You kind of start living in this echo chamber. I would say step out of this whole thing, understand the default human nature that you, as a mere mortal, all of us go through, our biases, fallacies, distortion, fear, all of that stuff, and kind of think of it objectively rather than getting, it is hard because I'm asking you not to be you. And I'm asking you to sit outside of you and question you. Yeah, if we did all that, we wouldn't be here. This is the hardest part, right? And we are pushed to get into that mindset right now. If we don't do it, like how we lost muscle, we are going to have cognitive atrophy as well. If there is one thing that I would urge you to do is be the master, use the tool correctly. And don't be so dependent to a point where it becomes your crutch. You should still be able to walk and run and do all that good stuff. And don't become disabled with this, because it is a very slow, invisible disablement that we will go through. And we will not even realize it. So that is my only ask. Like, it's amazing. Use it all you want, but don't allow it to become, I don't want it to take away who you are.
Got it. Karthi, thank you so much for, spending the time. This was an absolutely fantastic session. And I think we not only covered a variety of the technical aspects of, your job and what you do at Salesforce and throughout your career, but it was also very, very refreshing to get some of these more philosophical takes from your side on what this means for people at large. Right? Like we see these tools, okay, it's vibe coding today, it's mental atrophy tomorrow, right? That's a very, very interesting perspective, well beyond just the technical to carry with us with this session. Thank you everybody who, took out the time today on Sunday evening to attend this, and have a great rest of your Sunday evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure, folks. Thank you so much you could have done so many things on a Sunday evening. Thank you for being here.